Well, tonight I'm going to try to take this seat cover that came off of a 1970 Mercury Cyclone pettibone pattern, and I am going to try to turn it into another seat cover like this. First step is removing the seat tracks. Alright, the bottom of the seat tracks is simply 4 bolts. You can see looks like a star bolt here. I found that a 5/16 actually works pretty good. Fits right on there. I'm not sure what you're really supposed to use, but this will do the trick for now. With the first 2 bolts out, it's pretty much just a simple sliding the other ones back to gain access to the other ones. And then I have access to the bottom 2 bolts. It doesn't matter how simple the project, always label and put the hardware in a bag. Always seems like I end up with about 2 weeks between my projects, and other small projects come up in between, or my kids decided it was a good idea to play with my stuff, so I try to mark it and put it away. Alright, next is separating the seat back from the seat bottom. Pretty easy set of hardware with the latch. Plastic covers are still in pretty decent shape, and the actual retainer, I'm not sure what it's called, and then here as well. This just takes a Phillips screwdriver to remove. The next thing you got to do is remove the keepers from the hinge point. Looks like that one's already missing, so lucky me, I don't have to take that one off. There's probably better ways to do this than what I'm about to do, but this seems to work. I basically have a long pry bar that I put between the seat frame, since I'm not worried about the seat covers, since I'm replacing them anyway. And it does take quite a bit of pressure. I'll probably loosen them up with a hammer first. Try to get them freed up a little bit, and then continue to pry off these and slip them off. So I was able to loosen this up and just remove it from the peg, and then that just slips to the side and comes off. Once that side's off, then it's just moving the seat back off of the other side. This side, these bolts were quite a bit harder stuck than the other side, so I ended up getting my hammer impact driver with a number 3 tip in there, hitting the end of it with a hammer to get those out. Now that that's out, the next step is removing the stops, a little plastic with a single screw that exists between the back and the bottom, and just those removed, and then we should be on to removing the covers. Now I'll start on the bottom. Next is removing all of the hog ring clips, so about every 2-3 inches all the way around. You can see them passing through the listing wires, through the springs in some places, kind of randomly. I don't know if these have been refinished or if that was how it was originally. You can do it a couple different ways, just with a nice pair of side cutters, which these aren't, or just pry them apart with a pliers, vice grip, and a flat. I kind of prefer that, so I don't have to pick up all the little pieces from the floor that end up all over. Okay, once the hog ring clips are off, you can start to peel this back. This is a good time to pull out the listing wires that are inside. So you can see, just in this case, they're kind of a funny bend if you lose one or yours are broken or rusted. It really doesn't take much. Old coat hanger, piece of wire that's straight, just to slip them in the edges. Obviously not something that I can do one-handed, apparently. And once the listing wires are out, just peel it back, pull it around from the corners. These, I guess I don't really care if they rip too much. Although the bottom It's actually not in too bad a condition on this one. The other one was pretty rotten. A couple little spots there. Okay, now the seat cover is inside out over the foam. So there is a listing wire that is down under the foam. You've got to dig down there and cut those hog ring clips out. Okay, those are all cut away. We'll save that last wire, and that exposes the foam. See, here's my helper. Say hi. One thing I was surprised about is that the foam itself is attached also with a couple hog ring clips just to keep it in place while you put the seat cover over it. In this case, I'm putting new foam on for obvious reasons, so I get the pleasure of just pulling it off.
Is it garbage?
Yep, that's garbage now. Okay, so my seat burlap and the attached listing wires are still covered in this paper. Try to not cut the phone. Still in pretty good shape, so I'm definitely going to reuse those. Some of the edges are loose. I'm going to just wrap those around and put a hog ring clip in there just to hold those on to make sure that they get under the seat. Some of these were folded back. I can dig into the new foam on the seats. Here is the new TMI seat cover foam. So the new foam going with the covers. And it just slips over the top, kind of pushes down, and then you'll remember there's a couple hog ring clips down in, and they attach to, that line should line up with this. So we'll make sure that before we get started that sits right where it's supposed to. Looks pretty close. Might have to move that wire out just a little bit. Okay, so I did pretty much end up moving both of these wires and putting an outward curve on it, just slightly, to try to match the outward curve here, so I have something to attach. So now, if I'm straight over top of it, that is supposed to line up where I can get a couple hog ring clips in there. That's something I learned after doing the first seat and fighting it for quite some time. So I don't know if this is legit or not, but after doing the first seat and then kind of forgetting about it, you'll see I put the hog ring clip in there, and of course pulls right through the foam. I don't know if the old foam was better or if it was the same junk, but so what I did was just took a piece of duct tape where I'm gonna put my hog ring clip and line it right down in there. I don't know. It'll probably get crunchy after 10 years or so, and I'll regret putting it in there, but for now it makes me feel good. Well, I got those attached. There is a clip down in there. Like I said, I kind of used that duct tape down in there to hold it. Shouldn't be a problem. This is the new, these are Distinctive Industries seat covers. Look pretty original. I really like the look of them. Cost wasn't too bad. So the first thing is to do is to turn it inside out, just like we took the other ones off. Okay, inside out. We're taking the longer 2 listing wires, which is what came off. Those will thread down on this pair into this pocket. It's actually a little better pocket than some of the other places. That goes through. And that is our first step. We'll put the listing wires in there. And then begins the hard part. Well, now that that listing wire is down in there, obviously must be a little too long. I'll have to clip that off. Pockets are a little different, but we're gonna have to pull this back, put a hog ring clip through that, down through the foam, and in through this wire, in through the wire right here. So that is the hard part, as they are very separate right now. You got to push with one hand, clip with the other, get down through all 3. Usually takes me 3 or 4 tries for the first couple. All right, working on the other side, trying to put that clip down in there. Got the first one in. Really helped me to put my knee into it and push the material over, get it, that listing wire and the rest of it shoved down in there with one hand while I pushed in and clipped with the other. Alright, I've got 5 or 6 clips, hog ring clips down in there on each side. Next we'll be unfolding it around. You want to be careful when you're folding this around. There's a lot of stretching and moving. You don't want to rip the seams open. These are pretty good seats. I pulled pretty hard on the other one, but I'll take this inside and use a heat gun now to get it soft. So I missed a couple steps here because I had kids yelling and fighting. Nobody wants to hear that. What I did was, after I pulled it all around, I ended up with the seat wasn't actually level. I had one side pulled farther around the seat than the other side. So I ended up unfolding it again, tugging on it just a little bit, enough to slide it slightly. Must have been just enough play in the hog ring clips. And I pulled around the back corners. You can see I was pretty hard here. And tucked it around. This seat cover either doesn't fit this seat very well because it's not actually from a Mustang, or because maybe it's just not quite the right seat cover. Either way, I've got a nice thick listing wire in here. That'll work good. When you put the tracks over it, that'll bolt it down tight as well. I always pull this over a little bit, try to get the bolt inside that listing wire. Should be good. One little trick on these, don't try to cut or drill a hole in that. Just pull it tight around a little bit farther than you think it needs to be, and then hit the end with a hammer just a couple times, and then you can just kind of push the cover right over. That's where I ended up with that, pulling this around. Then I got attached back to the seat. I'll probably go back and put a couple more hog ring clips in here to hold that. It's kind of pulled a little funny. So other than that, that is the seat bottom. Looks like I got one more to put in up here, and turned out pretty decent. I'll use a heat gun, try to take out a little bit of this these bulges and some of the corners on the foam, but I think that'll do it. Next up is the back. This panel just kind of snaps up and out. You have to be a little careful with them. Make sure you try not to fold the cardboard, or it will not look the same when you're done. And if it does, like this one has a tear, we'll have to see what I do about that. Looks like at some point I had some mice living in here. Not terribly surprised, I guess. But same thing, start cutting or removing hog ring clips all the way around. Unfold it from the back. There will be listing wires across here, here, and here that have to be folded up and cut and removed. Okay, I have removed the big listing wire from the vertical sides. This one was just held on by one clip at the top and bottom, which is probably why it's so big. I did bend these, trying to fold them over so I could get to that top one. Just have to straighten those back out before I put them in. Looks like somebody's probably recovered this one, because this does not look like an original wire, which is fine. And then the top bar has a listing wire in here, and that should be attached down in here as well. Actually, this foam is splitting, and once that's off, then it's just pulling the whole cover up and out the top. And once that cover is up, you can pull this off. I do have this foam, mice trails again, this mat that I'm going to put over that seat bottom, probably something like this, and then reattach. It does have the wire in there, and I'll use that and some hog ring clips to go back in. So now to recover. zip tie. So then I went back through and put hog ring clips in everywhere I could. You have to really push from the bottom side to get them in there. Then it's going to be putting these across and pulling this all the way over to here.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Leah is very mad at me.
Whatever you did to her, apologize.
I did. I said,
His words were going backwards. When we got the test results, and that was before his growth spurt and before his mood swings became. Okay, stop. Not everything is a bad. Dr. Sam dying.
Okay, so I missed quite a few of the last steps, but pretty much just do the exact same thing in reverse by putting the clips in, using a pry bar to get the seat back on, putting the covers over. You kind of got to tuck this lip edge up, putting the little finishing parts and handle back on. The back plate, I was surprised, did take quite a bit to try to get lined up to find the first hole. Once you do, I just poked it through with a screwdriver, kind of wiggled it around to open that up. So that all turned out pretty decent. That little tear spot on the back, I actually ended up gluing it and bringing it back down with a razor and then touching it up with black. So overall, I think pretty decent job. Nice to have the pair of them done, and I'll move on to the seat backs, which I've got the covers and pads going there.